So this session is going to look at shape and space and looking at the basics. And what I'm going to try and cover in this session is working out perimeter and area of straightforward shapes. And by straightforward, we're talking about squares and rectangles mainly. Four-sided shapes are nice and easy. Know how to handle if we've got missing measurements or irregular shapes. And I'm also going to give you some practice to working out things. So you might want a calculator, or even better, pen and paper, and would be really good. In the functional skills test, shape and space questions can come up in the non-calculator bit or the calculator bit. And they tend to be part of a bigger question sometimes with the problem solving section, so you'll be used to working those out. As we tend to at the start of these sessions, I just want you to have a think and put a number in the chat for me to let me know how confident you feel about calculating perimeter and area if we're talking about a straightforward shape like a square or a rectangle, something with nice straight sides. If you're least confident, put 1. If you're most confident, put 10. And don't worry, we won't hold you to this for any reason, just to get an idea of where you think you are. And then we'll see at the end of the session whether the session's made any difference to you. Some big scores, some little scores, some middle scores. That's good to see. So a bit of a range, and so I make no apologies for this. Is going to be starting fairly basic, but then but basic doesn't mean easy. Basic just means it's the stuff you need to know before you can do anything else. So I mentioned perimeter area, and we are going to look at volume a bit later, and then we're sort of the key measurements in terms of shape and space. Sometimes we use the word capacity interchangeably with volume. I'll cover that a bit later. But perimeter and area are quite key things. So I'm going to ask you first of all, actually, before I reveal it, can anybody tell me in the chat, in just in the short sentence, how you work out the perimeter, or what the perimeter is of a shape? If we had a garden that we're measuring, where would the perimeter be? How would we know we're looking at the perimeter? Can anybody tell me anything they know about perimeter? Stacey and Catherine are saying similar thing, and then all the sides together. The outside line from Shahida, spot on. Right, so indeed the perimeter is the distance all the way around and outside of a 2D shape. So if we've got a flat shape, so again, if we're thinking about our garden, then the perimeter is the distance all the way around our garden. And again, let's imagine it's a nice straight shape for now. So if you imagine going around a shape, you'd be going along one side, down the other, along the other side, and up the other, and that would give you the perimeter. I don't tend to use words like width and length, and maybe not height and depth and those kind of things, because they're a bit interchangeable. So depending on how you look at an object will depend on where the width is, where the length is, and it doesn't really matter, to be perfectly honest. What we need to do for perimeter is we need to measure the distance all the way around the outside of the shape. So if this shape had on this side is 7 centimeters, and this side is 4 centimeters, doesn't really matter which one we call length, as I say, length, depth, width, whatever we call. What we need to know is we need to go along this side 7 centimeters. We need to go up this side 4 centimeters. We need to go back along here, which will be 7 centimeters, because it's the same as the bottom one. And this right hand side is the same as the left hand side, so this is another 4. So all we need to do is add all the sides together. And I tell you, if you do 7, add 4, add another 7, add 4 would give you 22. So the answer for this one for perimeter is 22, and we were working in centimeters, so we stick in centimeters. I'm not going to cover different kind of measurements. So you could have had a situation where it says 4 centimeters by 0.07 meters. You would need to do some conversion, but that was covered in our conversion webinar, so I won't go through those. What you do need to make sure is you're working in the same measurement. So the line on the bottom was 7 centimeters, and the one on the side was 4 centimeters. They're both centimeters, so I can do something about it. If one was in centimeters and one was in inches, I'd have to convert one of them so that then I can add them together. I can't add inches and centimeters together. It's probably quite obvious. But our perimeter for this shape is 22 centimeters. So let's think of a similar kind of shape. Well, that's not very square. That's meant to be a rectangle, but it's a bit of a skewy rectangle, but never mind. So if this was 4 centimeters and this was 7 centimeters, what if I'm working out the area? Where is the area of a circle? Of a square or rectangle? What part of it am I looking at? Brilliant. Straight away we said perimeter was around the outside, so area is our bit in the middle, is the inside. It's probably the worst drawing you've seen, but at least you get the idea. So the area is the amount of space that's inside a shape. We sometimes refer to a surface area, so as that suggests, that would be the size of the surface. So again, if we're thinking of a garden, you walk around a garden, it's a nice square or rectangle shape. The surface area is the area covered by the grass in the middle. And so it's the inside of the shape rather than the outside. So if we have our shape again, 7 by 4, then we need to know what is this gap in here. Can anybody tell me in the chat how you work that out? So previously we added 7, add 4, add 7, add 4. Any idea what we do? Spot on, lots of people saying already. You multiply one side by the other. So if we just do 7 times 4 would give us 28. And with area, we're actually talking about a squared calculation. I'll explain that in a moment. So we were working in centimeters, so it's 28 centimeters. But they're actually square centimeters or centimeters squared. And the way we symbolize that is with a little 2. You raise 2 above the centimeters. In the test, if you had to write that down, you can't do a little 2. So what you can always do is you can do 28 centimeters and then just put a number 2 afterwards, or write the word squared if you want to. Again, it's not very easy to type on this, I'm afraid. But it is important that you bear in mind the perimeter was 22 centimeters, because we were just walking that many centimeters round. 28 is the same inside. And one way to think about that is if we split our square, our rectangle up into 1, 2, 3, 4 centimeters, and we split it that way into 7 centimeters, then if we counted all of those squares, we'd actually have 28 centimeter squares in there. So that's one way to remember that the answer is 28 centimeters squared. And that would always be the case whether you're working in inches or meters or miles or kilometers or whatever it might be, it will always be that measurement squared. So that's quite a key thing to remember for area, is that you always remember them squared. Told you it was fairly easy. See, they were the first things we've done. So let's practice, and I'll let you do your calculations and put your answers. So this swimming pool has a length of 15 meters and width of 6 meters. You can see which way around they are. I don't know whether this is any of your back gardens that you're planning on using this summer. That looks a very nice swimming pool. But it's 15 meters one way in length and 6 meters the other. And I want you to work out what is the perimeter and what is the surface area based on what we've just done. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And if you can put your answers in the chat, that would be lovely. Oh, some answers coming through. That's good. Always worried that people can't hear me and they're not sure now, but that's good. Yeah, some answers coming through. Great, and people are remembering the little 2, which is hard to do in this chat, but it's at the 2 at the end of the meters. So that's one thing to bear in mind, is we're talking about meters here. So we're talking about centimeters before, but the swimming pool is meters. It's 15 meters going that way and 6 meters across. So we would need to do for our perimeter 15, add 6, add another 15 this side, add 6 this side. And I can tell you there's a few people who've put there, yeah, it comes to 42. And we're in meters, so we get our answers meters. And the bit in the middle is one side times the other. And we've said it's 15 and 6. 15 times 6 is 90 meters squared, which would show like that. So yeah, I think everybody's getting the right answer there. So really good. And we've got the idea of a perimeter and area. And I said them with the basics, and they are. Perimeter, add all the sides up. Area or surface area, multiply the 2 sides together. So the issue becomes now if we don't have a regular shape. So one of the first things that is quite common in the test actually is if you're not given all of the measurements. So I've not put this into a scenario. This is just a shape, and it's given us some measurements. But if you notice, we don't know how long this side is here, and we don't know how long this side is here. Perimeter, we said we have to add all the sides up. Well, we can't at the moment because we don't know what they are. So to work out the perimeter, the first thing we do is we need to work out those missing sides. So just for ease, oops, let's see if we can change the color of the pen. Let's go for a blue pen. So this side all the way down here is obviously the same as this side down here. And we can see that this side is 4 centimeters and 3 centimeters. So if we add them together, we can see that this side is 7 centimeters. Let's change color again. So let's go to purple. So all along here is 6. So all the way along here must be 6. But we haven't got this bit here, which we can see is 2 centimeters. 6 take away 2 is 4. So this section here must be 4 centimeters. So I've done that quite quickly, but hopefully that made sense to people. Let me undo the ink and try that again. So all the way along we can see is 4 and 3, makes it 7. All the way along here is 6. We need to take off this section that's 2. So that gives us 4 centimeters here. So now that we've worked out those missing sides, we can simply add all the sides together. And we would just do 7 add 6, 7 add 6, add 4, add 2, add 3, add 4. I can tell you that gives you a total of 26 centimetres. We're in centimetres, and we're doing perimeter around the outside, so we don't need squared or anything, and our answer is 26 centimetres. So the key there is we have to find those missing measurements first, but the information is on there on the screen. We just have to do a bit of working out for it. Area, however, what if it's not a regular shape? So let's stick with our shape. And the first thing we did was we worked out that that was 7 centimetres and that was 4 centimetres. That's good. So we've got two options really if it's not a regular shape such as this. Our first option is to make it a more regular shape. There's nothing to stop us doing anything we like with this. In the test, you can obviously draw this out on a piece of paper and use it however you want. To me, looking at that, what I can spot is if I draw a dotted line across there, I've now got this rectangle down here and a rectangle up here. Well, I know how to deal with area rectangles, so that makes my life a lot easier. So the first thing I've done is make it into two regular shapes. And my first regular shape is 6 by 4. My bottom regular shape is 3 by 4. So now I can work out the individual areas. So this one up here I can see is 6 by 4, which is 20, that must be pointer, which is 24 centimetres. And the bottom one is 3 by 4, which is 12 centimetres. And you're probably one step ahead of me. If we know the top one's 24 and the bottom one's 12, let's just add those together. And that will give me 36. And I've been very naughty. I forgot to put the squared sign in. So I want to put the squared sign in the answer quick so you don't shout at me. So 36 centimetres squared. So we worked out what we did. We took our shape and we split it into two regular shapes that we can deal with. We know we can deal with rectangles and squares. So let's make it into two of those and add them together. And it may be a completely irregular shape. We've got to split it up 5 ways. But as long as we can split it up and then put it back together, it's not an issue. The other option. So before I do this, one thing with maths is there's quite often different ways of doing things. And I'm quite a big fan of if you found a way that works for you, stick with that way. And what I've just shown you for the area is the way I personally would do it. But some people struggle to get their head around that one and they prefer a different method. So I am going to show you this different method. You obviously don't need to do both of them, but it's sometimes useful because you can check if you get the answer the same both ways, you know you've done it right. But also some people just prefer a different method. So I'm going to go through a second method for you. And really, we're doing the same thing. We want to make a regular shape. So rather than splitting our shape in half down here as I did, we're going to do the opposite. And we're actually going to expand the shape. And so if I draw dotted lines up there and dotted line up there, I've now got a full rectangle all the way around the outside here. And I know my measurements because I've got 7 on one side and 6 on the other. So I know my measurements of the full square, full rectangle, sorry. So if we take that shape, and we want to work out the total area. Well, that's the area inside this sort of light blue pattern. And I said it's 6 by 7, which I can tell you on right up here is 42 centimetres. I'm going to include my squared in so I don't get in trouble. Now we've got the total area there, but obviously we added this sort of little bit of random piece here. We added it to our garden that we haven't got. So if we now work out this piece of land here, oops, just change back to my pen. What we now need to do is obviously take away that section that wasn't actually there. That section we can see is 3 by 2, which is 6 centimetres squared. And if I do 42, take away 6, that gives me 36 centimetres squared. And if I'm writing still there, I didn't actually write it on that one. If you remember, it was the same measurement, the same answer as we got when we did the previous measurement. We've just done it a different way. So the reason some people like different ways, some people like that idea of let's make a bigger shape and then take it down. Some people don't like that idea in a bigger shape and rather do 2 or 3 smaller shapes. Whichever works for you is fine. But option 1 is split the shape up so you can use it into regular shapes. Option 2 is to add a section to it at the bottom, make it a bigger shape and then take it away. So let's go back to a swimming pool. There's nobody swimming in this one, unfortunately. So we've got a slightly irregular shape here because we've got a swimming pool that has a length of 18 metres and a width of 4 metres. So I'm talking about that width of 4 metres there, and obviously down the side is 18. But the steps measure 2 by 2. So the steps here are 2 by 2. Not quite to scale because they look slightly long there. Once again, I won't give you the answer yet. I would like you to work out the perimeter and the area. If we go for perimeter first, so I'm not going to put any more numbers on there because I want you to work it. See if you can work out the perimeter of the total of this pool. So if we imagine we're laying the pool and we've got to lay tiles around the outside, for example, we'd need to know the full perimeter of it, including the steps. So can you work out the perimeter? Yeah. Longest work this one out. All around the country now, hoping on lots of calculators tapping away and pens and paper, and we'll get an answer very shortly. Either that or you're all just waiting for somebody else to put the answer in first to check that you were right. What is the perimeter of this shape? We've got an option of 48, an option of 50. There's another 50. So while the final people are working through theirs, I'll show you the stages I would go through to work this out. So we know, let's try and see if we can do some straighter lines. We know that this side is 18 meters. I'll leave out the meters for now because it's just easier not to write it. And we know that this bit here is 2 meters. We also actually know that this is 2 and this is 2. What we don't, and then going across, we know that this is 4 meters, and it'll be the same at the top. What we don't know at the moment is what this bit is. So what we can look at is if the whole side is 18 and this bit in the middle is 2, we know that this bit here and this bit here must total 16. If they say they're equal, which they look equal, we know that each side must be 8. 4 at the top. So now we've got all our measurements. So for perimeter, as we know, we add up the outside. So we can simply, what I've done previously because it was quicker, we do 18, add 4. Let's change color to show where I am. Let's do it in green color, see if it shows up. So I would add up 18 side here. I would add up 4 and 4. I would add up 2, 2 and 2. And then I've got 8 here and 8 here, which does indeed give us a total of 48 meters. I think for those people who are doing 50, I'm going to assume, if you bear with me, change my color again. I think maybe you've added a 2 in here, but obviously that's not part of perimeter because that's inside our pool, so we don't need that. And maybe where you've got a rogue 2 from. But we've got 18, 4 and 4, 2, 2 and 2, and 8 and 8. Stacey does there how I worked out the 8. If I just undo all of this and show you that again. No, if I undo everything. So let's take the green. So we know that all the way down this side is 18. And we know that this gap here is 2, because we knew that the perimeter of the measurements of the steps is 2 by 2. If I do 18 take away 2, that gives me 16. And I need to split 16 between this bit and this bit. And if I split 16 in half, that gives me 8 up here and 8 down here. So some missing measurements there, and then I go and add those on as well. Hopefully that's that helps. So if you're not already ahead of me, I would also now like you to work out the area, or the surface area in this case, of that pool, including the water covers the whole of the pool, all of this, and it covers the steps. So I need you to work out the total area of the total area of this pool. While you're working out, I've used the word surface area there. So if you were talking about a flat shape, again, I'll stick with it with the garden or grass. We may just talk about the area of the grass it's covering. Obviously, with a pool, there's a depth to it as well. So what we're talking about is just the surface area. So it's better to use the word surface area because we know what we're talking about is the top. If you imagine a thin layer at the top, I suppose it would be the same at the bottom as well. But if we imagine a thin layer at the top, we're working out the surface area. If we just did area, technically, we'd have the measurements of the steps put in because they go up and in gradients, and so we won't bother with that. So that's why I've used the word surface area, but surface area are interchangeable in this context. So I've got a couple of answers coming through. Incidentally, we've got a number of questions that you can take away and practice on these. So yeah, you will get more chance to practice if it's taking a little while to work it out now. So let me show you how I would work it out again. So once again, we've got 18 and 4, and we know this is 2. Oops, or not. We know this is 2 by 2. And what I said previously was we've got this, you'd call that shape with a sticky out bit. Let's make it into 2 shapes. We'll draw a line there. 18 times 4 would give me this surface area. 2 times 2 gives me this area. I can tell you, just I worked it out earlier, 18 times 4 is 72. 2 times 2 is 4. Add those two together, gives us 76 meters. We're in meters, remember. I remember it's because we're area in squared, so it's 76 meters squared. So to clarify that, this bit is 18 times 4 is 72. This bit is 2 times 2, which is 4. Add them both together and gives us 76. And I'm just looking, yeah, we've got a few of those, and most people, if not everybody's put meters squared, meters with a little 2 as well, so that's really good. Well done to everybody. Great. We're not going to do this one, so don't panic if you're looking at this. This is one of the practice questions I will send you. We'll probably send them after all of the sessions today because they involve volume and all sorts. I don't want to send them too early. But you may get a question with lots of different shapes there, which looks very confusing. But actually, the good thing about this is they're all squares or rectangles. So we've got the total shape. We've got a blue pond, a brown deck. I'm not quite sure what the yellowy thing is. I think it might be being a greenhouse and there's paving. So if I had to work out the area of grass for this, I could work out the area of all those individual bits. I could work out the total area, take all those bits off, and that'd leave me with the grass area there. So although it looks confusing and it looks a lot of information there, actually, when we're with squares and rectangles, even if they're slightly irregular shapes and we've got to split them up, something like that, we can still do it. So the key things to take away from this session is perimeter is the outside, and to work that out, we add up all the sides. The area is the inside shape, and the way to do that is multiply one side by the other, and our area will always be squared. Meters, kilometers, inches, feet, whatever it might be, will always be squared, which is shown with a little 2. If we've got missing measurements, the best thing to do is we need to work them out before doing the calculations. I should also add in there something I mentioned briefly before. If we've got different measurements, so if one measurement is in inches and 1 meter is in centimeters, again, we should work those out, but do that conversion before we do any calculations rather than trying to work out the end. That's particularly the case with area. So if you need your answer in centimeters, but you've got your measurements in meters, do the conversion before you do all your calculations is an extra tip in there. And then finally, if you've got an irregular shape, if you can, make them more regular before you do your calculations. Why have something hard when you can make it easy? In the test, if you need to draw that on a piece of paper and you want to rip your piece of paper in half to show where it's done, that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't recommend drawing on the screen because it'll ruin your computer, but you can easily draw it back out again and draw your dotted lines and things and to imagine how you make that a more regular shape. And remember, there were 2 options for that. One was to either make them smaller, break them up into smaller shapes, or make it a bigger shape and then take pieces away. So what I wanted to go through in this session was to go through perimeter and area, looking at regular shapes, which we call squares and rectangles, 4-sided shapes generally with straight lines. Know how to handle missing measurements and irregular shapes that hopefully we've covered, and you've had a bit of a chance of working out area.